A woman is running through the desert. No water, no plan. Pregnant. The man who was supposed to protect her, the man her masters gave her to, has done nothing. The woman who owns her has made life unbearable. And so she runs, not toward anything, away. Into the wilderness, south of Beersheba, toward Egypt, toward whatever is left of the life she had before all of this happened. She does not know where she is going. She knows where she cannot stay. Her name is Hagar. She is Egyptian, a slave, the property, and that is the right word, property, of a wealthy couple named Abraham and Sarah, the same Abraham who is called the father of faith, the same Sarah who laughed when God promised a son. These are the heroes. Hagar is not a hero in this story. She is a tool. Sarah cannot conceive, so she does what was legal and common at the time. She gives her slave to her husband as a surrogate. Hagar does not choose this. She is not asked. She is given, and then Hagar becomes pregnant, and something shifts. The text says Sarah began to treat her harshly. The Hebrew word used, Anna, is the same word used to describe the Egyptian oppression of the Israelites in Exodus, the same word. The oppression that Hagar experiences from Sarah uses the same language that will later describe slavery in Egypt. That is not a coincidence. The writer wants the reader to see something, that the hero's household is capable of the same cruelty that the villain's nation is famous for. And nobody preaches that part. Abraham's response is worse. Sarah goes to him and says, "This is your fault." And Abraham, the father of faith, the friend of God, says, "She is your slave. Do whatever you want with her." He hands her back. The man who bargained with God to save Sodom, who argued for strangers, will not argue for the woman carrying his child. The silence of a good man in the face of injustice. That is a theme the Bible keeps returning to. And it starts here, in Genesis 16, in a household that is supposed to be blessed. Hagar runs into the desert, pregnant, alone, enslaved, abused, and dismissed by the one person who could have intervened. And this is where something happens that has no parallel anywhere else in Genesis. An angel of the Lord finds her beside a spring of water in the wilderness, not in a temple, not on a mountain, not at an altar built by a patriarch. At a spring in the middle of nowhere, next to a woman that nobody was looking for. The angel speaks to her, calls her by name, Hagar, slave of Sarah. He knows who she is. He knows where she came from. He knows what was done to her. And then he makes a promise that sounds almost identical to the promise given to Abraham, descendants too numerous to count. A son, a future. Not through Abraham's merit, through hers, through a runaway slave sitting in the dirt beside a spring. The son's name will be Ishmael. It means God hears. The angel tells her, "The Lord has heard your affliction," not interpreted your affliction, not assigned meaning to it, heard it. The distinction matters. A God who assigns purpose to suffering says, "This is for your growth." A God who hears affliction says, "I know this hurts, and I am here." That is the God Hagar meets, not the God of plans and blueprints, the God who hears a woman crying in the desert and responds not with an explanation, but with presence. And then Hagar does something that no one in the Bible has done before her. She gives God a name. She says, El Roi, the God who sees me. In the original Hebrew, Atah El Roi, it carries the weight of astonishment. She is not calmly labeling a theological concept. She is gasping. She says, "Have I truly seen the one who sees me?" Sit with that for a moment. A slave, a woman with no social standing, no voice, no agency. And she becomes the first person in the entire biblical record to name God. Not Abraham, who walked with God for decades, not Moses, who would later see the burning bush, not David, not Solomon, not a priest, a prophet, or a king, a pregnant runaway slave. The person with the least power in the entire narrative is the one who sees God most clearly. And the name she gives is not about power or judgment or sovereignty. It is about being seen. El Roi, the God who sees. That detail alone deserves more attention than it gets. In a culture where naming something meant having authority over it, where Adam named the animals to signify dominion, Hagar names God. A slave exercises the one form of power that no master can take, the power to articulate what she experienced. and what she experienced was not wrath, not instruction, not a lesson. It was being seen. For the first time in her life, someone looked directly at her. Not through her, not past her, at her. There is a notebook, Nathan's, where that name has been written more than once, not as a theological reference, as a reminder that the God described in this story does not begin with the powerful. He begins with the overlooked. He does not wait at the altar for the important people to arrive. He shows up at a desert spring where a woman nobody values is sitting alone, wondering if anyone knows she exists. The rest of Hagar's story is complicated. The angel tells her to go back, which is difficult to read from a modern perspective, and it should be. She returns. She gives birth to Ishmael. Years later, after Isaac is born, Sarah demands that Abraham cast Hagar and Ishmael out. Abraham does. He gives them bread and a skin of water and sends them into the desert of Beersheba. The water runs out. Hagar puts her son under a bush and walks away because she cannot watch him die, and she sits down at a distance and weeps. And God finds her again in the wilderness, again at the bottom. He opens her eyes, and she sees a well, water, survival, a future. Every time the story discards Hagar, God picks her up. Every time the powerful forget her, God remembers. Not once, twice, the same woman, the same desert, the same God who sees. Most sermons about Abraham skip Hagar entirely, or mention her as a footnote, the mistake, the detour, the consequence of Sarah's impatience. But the text does not treat her that way. The text gives her a scene that no other character gets. The text lets her name God. And the name she chooses reveals something about the nature of God that all the covenant theology in the world cannot replace. Before God is powerful, before God is sovereign, before God is judge, God sees. Specifically, personally, the ones that everyone else has stopped looking at. And that is not some minor footnote in the story of faith. That might be the whole point of it. If there is someone listening who feels invisible right now, not dramatically invisible, not publicly suffering, just quietly unseen, the story of Hagar is not a history lesson. It is a mirror. The God she met at that spring is the same God, and the name she gave still holds, El Roy, the God who sees the ones nobody else does. That might not fix anything tonight. It might not change the job or the relationship or the silence, but it means something to know that being seen was the first thing God offered, before a plan, before a promise, before a purpose. Being seen came first, and sometimes that is the only thing a person needs to keep going. There is a well in the desert that Hagar named too. Bir Lahai Roy, the well of the living one who sees me. Centuries later, Isaac, Sarah's son, the promised child, the heir of everything, went to live near that well. Genesis 24, verse 62. The son of the woman who cast Hagar out chose to live beside the well that Hagar named. The story does not explain why. It does not need to. Some places carry a gravity that outlasts the people who named them. And sometimes the most lasting thing in a story is not the legacy of the hero, it is the name given by the person no one counted. That is what Hagar left behind. Not a dynasty. A name for God that 3,000 years have not erased. And next time, the person God removed from a life. But maybe not for the reason anyone thinks.